Good morning, beloveds. Anything practical that we need to get off our mind so we can... Can you pass it back to her? No, I'm happy with it. This is good, thanks. Okay, noticing, here we are. Okay. Here we are. This moment, all we have. Gently noticing what's the habit of your focus. Does your focus include the experience you call your body? Just seeing what the habit is. And as you notice the habit, does something shift in you? Do you notice something getting softer, sweeter? Does it get more tense? What happens? Just noticing, yeah? As we could see, the habits of focus, really a subtle shift in how our focus is happening changes our sense of self and changes our sense of life. So we're exploring yes, different focuses. Yeah? How difficult is it to have a shift of focus? Does it take a lot of effort, or is it just an easy thing? Yeah? Yeah. Just noticing what your habit is. One way of describing it is, most of us have gotten used to the focus of waiting for a better experience. This one isn't okay, and somewhere we kind of have gotten ourselves just a little bit or a lot waiting, yeah? And it's interesting how that works, yeah? When we're not really here, because we looked last night at the subtlety of what does even being here mean? Because, people says, yeah, well, when I'm really upset, I'm really here. But as we looked at that, we could see when we're really upset, we're not really here, yeah? We're wanting something to be different. So we're here, right? And these habits of wanting to be somewhere else or have it different, because of their nature, because of being habits, we often don't pick up on, we don't notice. They're subtle, they're habitual, we're used to them. So just including the experience that you call your body, because your body is an experience, that we looked at last night. Your body is an experience to you. And we looked at last night this, again I would call it a habit of thinking that our experience is us, that it has something to do with us. My contraction, my pain, my experience even. Yeah, your experience is right now, and it's the experience of life, of everything, yeah? So if somebody is not happy in your field, in the world anyway, you'll feel it in you. And if you think it's you, what happens? You want to get rid of it. Yeah. So, and if there's anything unconscious playing in you, and you think it's you, again, you enter into a way of functioning that's habitual, that has no chance of ever making life sweet and beautiful. As long as that's playing, there'll be suffering, yeah? And just notice what happens to the feeling in the room. Can some of you notice it's changing? Interesting, huh? So one way of looking at it is that the field that we're in has changed. The whole field that we're all in. And that field is generated by focus. Unconscious or conscious. So that's how easy it is to change the dreaming, to change the world we live in. It's just through our focus, yeah? Focusing one way, no matter how intelligent or brilliant our seeing is, when it's through a contracted space, it dreams the contraction into being, yeah? So we don't need to be brilliant. No, if we find ourselves brilliant, no problem. But we don't need to be. Just this subtle noticing, yeah, of focus. Please.
When you talk like that, it sounds to me as if
The mic.
when you're speaking like that, it sounds as if I can put the focus somewhere. It's always a tricky...
Yeah, that's the difficulty of speaking, yeah? So let's look at it and see. If you're driving to work every year, every day, you're 22, yeah? So you've been driving to work for 5 years or 6 not a long time for you, but for some people they've been driving to work for many years, yeah?
I've actually been driving to work for 10 years.
10 years, okay. Okay.
And stopped now.
Okay, good, yeah. But whatever, just using this as an example. You're driving to work, that's how life moved you, and you find that's what's happening, yeah? Who's doing it? You know, don't need to go into philosophy right now, but that's what happens, is that's what you find your life like that, yeah? And the drive takes you 2 hours. And one day your neighbor who works near you says, listen, can I get a ride? And you say, sure. And you start driving, they say, don't you know there's a 15-minute route? Okay, and you say, no, can't be. I've been doing it 10 years. I looked at the maps, I Googled it, everything. I never saw this. Okay, show me. And the neighbor takes you and shows you. 15 minutes and you're there, yeah? Okay, now, next morning you have to go to work, but the neighbor has his car back, and which way are you going to go? Huh?
Of course, the 15-minute route.
15-minute away. Now, who's doing it? Does it matter? No. Somehow, something got seen, yeah? So if you have a habit of focus, that's unconscious. Clearly nobody's doing that, yeah? Yes, no? If there's a focus, that's unconscious. Who's doing it? Consciousness, we can say, yeah. Somehow it's happening. We don't know. Now, that habit becomes conscious just by noticing. And you notice as that habit becomes conscious, wow, it's so much sweeter, it's so much more lovely, yeah? Just, wow, my heart just feels overflowing. I feel connected to everything. And it's effortless. No effort is required. Now, who noticed it even? How did noticing happen, yeah?
Yeah, it's clear now to me. I can see where you're pointing from the other direction.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see it now. And you see, if we go into philosophy about it, it doesn't do it. But when you see it actually, then it makes a difference, yeah? So we just, what we're noticing, yeah, we are. I think most people here have recognized themselves as consciousness. I don't know anyone who hasn't, but we'll see if that becomes clear. Everybody has recognized themselves as conscious. And all of us know that in us there's unconscious patterns playing. And the nature of unconscious patterns is we're not doing them. They're just playing, yeah? Now our habit is to think we're responsible and to think other people are responsible for their unconscious habits. Isn't it? Isn't that what we do? Now what happens if you think you're responsible for an unconscious habit? Shame, blame, guilt. So, yeah. Some people call that suffering, yeah? Okay. Now what happens if you think somebody else is responsible for an unconscious habit in them? Blame, anger,
it feels
irritation.
Good.
Feels good, yeah? Yeah, there's a certain feeling of being right, you know, and better than and all that stuff. But good, I'm not so sure I'd call it that. Okay. So when we think somebody else is responsible for an unconscious habit that's going on in them, how do we behave towards them? We try to change them. Isn't it? Anger, distance, holding our love back is very common. Separation, and disappointment, feeling betrayed, making them wrong. We try and point out how wrong they are, yeah, to them. Yeah. Yeah. That's what happens if we think that they're responsible for their unconscious patterns. Just that thinking, all of that stuff happens. Most of you have tried it once or twice this lifetime? Yeah. Once or twice, okay. How's it worked out for you? Yeah, we can compare research, yeah? We're independent researchers, yeah? So we yeah. Always goes the same way, yeah? But if there's an unconscious pattern going on in someone, and you can see that it's an unconscious pattern, you can see they're not doing it, usually they're not even aware what's going on in them. How do you feel towards them then? Compassion. Compassion. Interesting, huh? Instantly there's compassion. Oh, they just don't see that. Wow. Then you have a way that if you feel moved to, you can actually speak to them. You know, like I notice something that might be of use, but I see that it's not you, so there's no blame, there's no trying to change. Then maybe your seeing becomes a gift, yeah? Or not? Normally when we see and we think that they're doing it or that they're conscious about what's going on, then our seeing comes across in a way that's not useful to them at all. Can you see that? You've had that experience? Yeah. Yeah, because we come with an energy, yeah? Yeah. So, what I've noticed in myself is that any time I'm upset with anybody, what's happened is something in me believes that that person had a choice in what they're doing. Check and see when you're upset with anybody, if that's going on in you. If you see they didn't have a choice, can you be upset? If you see they genuinely didn't know, can you be upset with them? But if you believe that they had a choice, then we have no choice but to be upset. That's a funny thing about choice. So here we are. Is there anybody that woke up this morning and thought, let me see how I can mess up my life? And not only that, everyone that I love. It's not how we think, is it? We don't, it's not how we operate. But it's how most of us actually function. Without meaning to, yeah? Isn't it? If you look at it. We don't mean to function in a way that's painful to the people around us. But we do. And we function in a way that's painful to ourselves.
We are very good in that.
Hmm?
And we are very good.
Yeah, I mean, when you say we're very good at it, it functions that way in us, yeah. Okay, so we're back to this question. Here we are. We all recognize we're in the same boat, yeah? We've got these unconscious habits going on in us. Happening in space, happening in consciousness. Who's doing them? We can say consciousness, yeah? Or we don't even need to know. We don't know where they're coming from, but in the sense that everything is consciousness, it has to be consciousness, yeah? So consciousness has this amazing capacity to function in ways that are unconscious. I mean, that's astounding, isn't it? When you think about it, that's truly amazing, yeah? And here we are, and as humans there's this capacity for those ways to become conscious. Isn't it? That's awesome, isn't it? Those patterns that have been troubling man for centuries, generations. There's the capacity in us for those patterns to become conscious.
And how do they become conscious?
That's what we're looking at, yeah? So we had an experience already this morning, just as we started to notice what the habit of our focus was, yeah? Gently, no right, no wrong. Just a subtle and gentle noticing. What's the habit of my focus? Why it's so difficult to pick up is because mostly our focus is habitual. And when our focus happens, in the focusing, a sense of me happens and a sense of life. And then we're busy with what we think life is. And we're busy with what we think we are. And as long as that busyness is going on, we have no capacity whatsoever to notice the focus. Isn't it? Okay. So once we've narrowed it down, we can see that all we're ever dealing with is habits of focus, yeah? Now there's another subtlety that's worth noticing and bringing into view here, because as our focus changes, not only does our sense of self and the sense of reality change, but our nervous system it shows up in our nervous system. It shows up in our bodies. Now, eventually those focuses will show up as dis-ease. So we were looking last night about this thing about you create your own reality. As long as we believe that, we don't have a capacity to notice what's going on. If we start to look and see what's going on unconsciously, then we have another capacity. We can start to see, but without looking from the sense of me, from the sense of I. We start to see as awareness. We start to see as consciousness itself, yeah? So, at the level of the body, and I mean, this is going on in every single cell. Our cells are either fully open to receiving the information of life in this moment, or they contract. That's what's going on in every single of your billions of cells. It shows up further in your musculature. When you're fully enjoying the moment, you're living with this moment as if it's the beloved. Feel what happens, even if you suggest it, what goes on in your nervous system. Something in you softens a little bit. How many of you can sense that? Yeah. We can see that when our cells or our nervous system is oriented towards not receiving the moment fully, or waiting for better experience, whichever way you want to describe it, how that shows up is at a subtle tightening up. And again, though that habit of tightening up, because it's so familiar, very hard to pick up unless we consciously, gently start to notice. And that oftentimes we don't even notice it, but when it relaxes, we can pick up, wow, this is different. Something relaxed in me that I didn't even know was tight. And then you can start to feel, okay, what's the pattern there? What's going on? Okay, here we are. All of us interested in having the sweetest time, moment by moment, walking in beauty, being available as beauty to life. How is that possible now? As we hear and we available, noticing what's going on in us, yeah? Gently. Seeing the functioning that goes on in us unconsciously. Just feeling, what does that do in the room? What happens? Softens up, huh? You can feel it. Yeah, now feel, let your awareness include the world, the earth, the people on the planet, from that softness, yeah? And just noticing anywhere that your body tightens up in that. Because the world's in quite a mess at the moment, yeah? It's a manifestation of all our unconscious functioning, yeah? Now, what happens if, in your own experience, as you hear, gently, softly, just exploring, being here, and including life, the world, the whole, all of humanity. Just with this gentle noticing, not trying to change anything, but just noticing where your system unconsciously had contracted previously and was adding to what was going on. Can you see how if there was contraction in your system, it added to the whole mess? Now, what happens when that relaxes in you? What does that do to the whole matrix? What can you feel? What can you sense? It ripples, yeah? What else do you notice? Just compassion, yeah? And how does that touch? What does that do?